Well, I was there for much more than 3 months.
Right. You decided to stay longer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I realized that what was going on was a power struggle between all these different groups, and my province was Kirkuk. And everybody was struggling for power. The Kurds wanted to annex the province because it had all this oil. And they thought if they annexed the province to their territory in the north, then they could gain independence and become a separate country. And for years, Saddam had been expelling Kurds from Kirkuk and bringing in Arabs to try and give the province an Arab majority so that the Kurds wouldn't annex the province. But in the aftermath of his overthrow, that's what was happening. So there was massive displacement, Kurds coming back and Arabs being pushed out. So I spent a lot of time managing land disputes between different groups. And this power struggle that I was trying to broker agreements, mediate between all the different factions. So every day it was trying to prevent a civil war from breaking out in the province. That's what I saw my role as.
What keeps bringing you back there?
I mean, Iraq is a fascinating country, and I really love it, really love the people there. I made really, really good friends. And I grew very close to the US Army because we were all thrown in this really, really difficult situation. And we were just trying to do the best that we could without much guidance from above. So my first deployment, if you like, I was in Kirkuk, and the brigade there was the 173rd Airborne Brigade, which is an elite unit that's based in Vicenza in Italy. And some of the brightest and the best in the US Army are in that unit. And after my first year in Iraq, a couple of years later, I was invited by General Ray Odierno to come back to Iraq to work for him as his political advisor. So I'd met him in 2003, 2004, but then in 2007 he was put in charge of all the troops in Iraq for the surge. And he reached out to me, I was back in London, he reached out to me and said, would I come and be his advisor and go with him wherever he went, whether it was to the front line of battle or to all his meetings with Iraqi officials or US officials, and just be that sounding board, that advisor.
Didn't you spend time in a kibbutz first? Was that your first?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like anyone who spends time in the Middle East at a kibbutz, something happens. I've known so many people that go there, and it's life-changing.
Yeah.
Right? And in listening to you speak the other day, you mentioned how important that was to you, and how you learned to love the people, both in Israel and in Palestine too.
Yeah.
Right? And that started the ball rolling for your interest in the Middle East, right? So what was it when you were there about the American Army that you found that you liked? What was that?
Well, there are a lot of similarities. I mean, the American Army is like a socialist system from cradle to grave. All these people being put together in a small community, and that you have to rely on each other, that everybody has a role to play, everybody is part of something, and that something is bigger than themselves. And this purpose, we all had this mission to implement that everybody was contributing to. They would die for each other. They were dedicated to each other and dedicated to the mission. Well, the mission.
Maybe the mission has changed.
Yeah, the mission
obviously.
changes all the time.
Sure. But back then, did you question it?
Of course, I was somebody very much against the war. We shouldn't have been there.
Okay.
But once you're there, you're there.
I'm going to take you up here.
And for soldiers, they don't question the mission. It's not up to them to think is this a good idea or not.
No, you don't want them questioning them.
Their job is to to implement.
That's right.
Oh, this is lovely down here.
Isn't this nice?
This is really nice.
This is the Matticat Creek area, and then that's a lot of people park their boats here, and then they go out. That out there is Tuckernuck. That's another island.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
Yep, and then beyond that is Martha's Vineyard.
I've been to Martha's Vineyard.
Oh yeah. This is a much nicer island, isn't it?
A much nicer island. There's less people.
Where? Here?
Here.
Well, right now, yes. You came at a perfect time. This is the lull before the storm.
It's perfect weather.
Oh, it's incredible. How many times have you been to Iraq in the Middle East?
Well, I lived in Jerusalem for about a decade.
Oh gosh.
I was there all through the 90s.
Yeah. I've been there too, and I actually did a show in Israel. I got some opinions though about it. Man, first of all, I met this girl online, okay, and it was a romantic reason why I went there. But when I got there, I just couldn't handle her hate for the Palestinian people, for anyone Arab. I was shocked at it.
Well, we're seeing it now with these presidential elections. You can see all that poison that's coming up in these elections, and you think, I don't recognize my own society. I mean, we see it in the UK about the decision to leave the European Union.
Right.
And it's bringing up opinions. I didn't know people had such opinions, because we all tend to live and interact with people who have the same opinions as ourselves. When these things come up, or when you hear whether it's Donald Trump or the far right in the UK, they have opinions which are racist, which are so angry, which are so hostile. And they're very similar to the opinions that you hear among Israelis. You think, this is not good for us as human beings. It's not good to hate like that. It's destructive.
Do you think Netanyahu is good for Israel?
No, I think it's terrible for Israel. I think he's leading Israel to self-destruction. It's all about promulgating fear and then saying that I'm the only one who can save you from your fear. Well, if you look at Yitzhak Rabin, he was about hope. Let's look at the world we want to live in and let's try and create it. And I will lead you to that optimistic future. Where Netanyahu is the absolute opposite of that.
Right.
And you can see around the world, plenty of politicians will play to people's fears.
Oh, don't they?
And it takes much greater leadership to say, look, let's put these things in perspective. Let's try and create the sort of world that we want to live in.
And so, are you optimistic? I mean, here we are. We've got such a mess over there right now. ISIS. Have you come into contact with any of those people?
Well, it's difficult to know because people don't say, hello, I'm from ISIS.
Right.
So I have probably come into contact with people who are supporters of ISIS, who now might be members of ISIS. I don't know, but
Right.
I assume that I have.
Right. Is it more dangerous now to go there for you? Or no? Or was it?
I mean, I've been back a few times, but when I'm back, I'm with Iraqi friends, and so they protect me as they would any member of their family. So I feel safe when I'm with them. But it's not advisable for, some tourists to just turn up in Iraq to do some tourism. I mean, you can go to northern Iraq, to Iraqi Kurdistan, it's safe there.
Right.
The rest of the country, it's not advisable to go.
It's not, no. How can people make this go away? This problem?
It's very, very difficult now because the opportunities were missed. So the opportunities in 2003, opportunities in 2010.
What were those? Tell us.
Well, I mean, the Iraq War should not have happened, but nothing that happened in Iraq after the invasion was inevitable. So we could have helped build up a state that was inclusive of all its citizens. And, Iraq could have had a better future. Iraq collapsed into civil war because of our collapsing of the state. Then through the surge, we helped restore stability to the country, and all the indicators were in the positive direction. Then in 2010, when all Iraqis came together for the national election and voted for change, voted for a non-sectarian government, we ignored the election results and just kept with the guy who lost the election.
Oh, he was a disaster.
And he was a disaster. It was Nouri al-Maliki.
Right.
And he just pursued very sectarian policies that pushed Sunnis out of the political process, and it's set the environment for the Islamic State to suddenly present itself as the defenders of Sunnis. And that's what happened. Islamic State was able to take over a third of Iraq because Sunnis in Iraq felt very alienated.